work with meridians, Sushumna, Chitrini, Zhen-Mo, the microcosmic orbit, and the middle meridian. Upon mastering all exercises described above, it would be appropriate to put the main meridians of the body to rights. The whole human body, as well as the bodies of animals and even plants, is being run through by numerous canals, invisible with regular eyesight, which channel energies of various levels of refinement around the organism. These canals, called meridians or nadi, were discovered and utilized in ancient Chinese medicine, Zhen Tsyu therapy. The meridians can be discovered, in particular, because of their increased, compared to adjacent body tissues, electroconductivity, but one should keep in mind that electric current, even the weakest one, is inadequate for them. Therefore, the methods of punctate electrodiagnostics and electropuncture can be used in the extraordinary cases only. The meridians can be seen by people whose range of perception was expanded through a system of training similar to ours. As a result of inflammatory processes in the body tissues, a contaminating type of nutrition, or external negative energetic influences, the meridians can lose their conductivity. In this case, lingering disorders of the organs, deprived of proper energy supply, may develop. Such diseases usually cannot be completely cured by using drug therapy. In cases like this, acupunctural methods and similar healing techniques, laser, vibration, and other kinds of influence through biologically active points of the integument, turn out to be efficient. These methods work because they restore conductivity of the meridians by means of sending currents of energy through them. But it is more effective to cleanse the meridians on one's own using the methods described in this book. Let us talk about several meridians that can be successfully used in psychic self-regulation. All the chakras are connected with one another by large meridians that run along the spine, as well as the front and the middle part of the body. A wide canal called Sushumna, Tumo or Dumo in Chinese, runs along the spine from Muladhara to Sahasrara. One of its functions is to distribute the energy extracted from food to the chakras. Within Sushumna, in its back section, there is a significantly narrower canal. Its diameter is about 2 centimeters, called Vajrini, through which the energy of Svadhisthana, called Udana, flows to other chakras. The third of the spinal canals, Chitrini, Brahmanadi, is located behind Sushumna. It begins at the end section of Sahasrara, passes under the occipital bone, and runs down the back part of the neck, and then down the backmost part of the spinal column, coinciding with the spinous processes of vertebrae and the skin. Chitrini is an extremely important structure. It will serve us as a standard for one of the subtlest states, to which we can attune the emotional sphere. On the G. Gurdjieff's scale of hydrogens, the state of Chitrini is assessed as H3. This is the Holy Spirit's level of subtlety. Upon learning to concentrate in Chitrini, one can easily dive as a consciousness through this canal into the eons of the Holy Spirit and directly communicate, embrace, and then merge with Him there. This is how religious truths turn from abstractions into reality. The system of the chakras is also communicated by the front channel, Zhen-Mo. It begins from the upper end of Sushumna, forks into two branches that turn around Sahasrara, and join in the forehead area to split into several small canals that run down the face and join again in the Vishuddha region. One more branch of this canal goes through the middle of the head, reaches the chin coming through the palate, and joins the other branches at the neck. After that, the canal runs down the front side of the trunk, branching off to every chakra, passes the share bone, and heads for the coccyx. We should pay special attention to the upper part of this canal, which unites the four chakras of the so-called emotional center, Anahata, Vishuddha, Manipura, and Ajna, into one functional block. Anahata and Vishuddha play the leading role in this complex. The intensity of emotions depends to a certain extent on the Manipura chakra, while the Ajna chakra serves as a liaison for interaction with hypothalamic pituitary complex, which plays an important role in coordination of the emotional and behavioral reactions of the entire organism through the endocrine system. Only those people whose front canal is well developed and who know how to use it are able to experience truly exalted, positive emotions in communicating with other people and with nature. But such people are extremely few, only a handful per thousands. Most people do not have a developed front canal, and it takes special efforts to develop it. In Chinese tradition, the system of the spine and the front canals is called microcosmic orbit. By means of circulating energy around the microcosmic orbit, one can perform transformation of energies within the organism. The aim of this work is to produce and accumulate golden elixir within the organism. The subtlest energy obtained as a result of such transformation was called by this term in ancient alchemy. Performance of exercises with the microcosmic orbit produces a strong emotional effect. On one of the subtlest planes, the system of the chakras is communicated by one more canal, the middle meridian. This wide meridian connects the developed chakras, running vertically through the middle of the entire body. It forms along with the development of the chakras. It cannot be found in people whose chakras are undeveloped. Its width corresponds to the diameter of the chakras. This is also a very important energy structure of the organism. Let us begin with Sushumna. The easiest way to cleanse it is to use an image of a bottle brush. In order to do this, we need to imagine ourselves moving back from the body, out of the anahata, and becoming a little bigger than the body. Then we start to scrub Sushumna with this bottle brush. An important detail to keep in mind while doing this is that we need to cleanse also the passage from Sushumna to Muladhara, which goes not just down from the sacrum in a straight line, but down and forward. The next in turn for cleansing is the middle meridian. It is convenient to work with this structure at special places of power, which are auspicious for moving the concentration of the consciousness below the body. This implies that by this time, the consciousness of the practitioner must be developed by performing the previous exercises to such an extent that allows moving as a consciousness below the body without losing the subtle state. Upon entering the middle meridian from below, we have to wash its walls with an image of a wet rag with soapy foam, for example, or in any other appropriate manner. After that, it is quite important to cleanse the partition between Sushumna and the middle meridian. In order to do this, one has to be in both meridians at the same time, coming into Sushumna from above and to the middle meridian from below. In this case, the partition between these meridians and possible dark spots on it become visible. Elimination of these spots brings the next stage of purification of the body. When Sushumna is cleansed, we may start working with the microcosmic orbit. For this purpose, we enter the two lower chakras and bring their energy up the Sushumna, move it over the head, and bring it down through the front canal back to the two lower chakras. We repeat this exercise several times. During this process, coarse energies, including those causing diseases, get transformed into subtle ones in the Zhen-Mo meridian. After the first few times of working with the microcosmic orbit, one must perform a deep relaxation in Shavasana. In the future, we may learn to change the trajectory of the energy moving around the microcosmic orbit, so that the energy flow will pass through the diseased regions of the body, if there are any. This will enable us to heal them. We begin to learn to rotate energy around the orbit, which includes the Sushumna meridian. But then we have to learn to do the same through Chitwini and within the energy cocoon that surrounds the body. All this will bring yet other levels of health improvement and refinement of the consciousness. In the practice of our school, this is usually performed quite easily at the corresponding places of power, areas that have a special energetic significance for a human being. You may well find them somewhere around the place you live in. In conclusion of this chapter, I want to mention that there are methods of Chinese Qi Gong that got into Europe, which involve work with the microcosmic orbit without preceding thorough cleansing and development of the chakras and meridians. In such cases, the entire work is performed only at the level of visual images, while purifying, healing, and refining effects are not obtained. The cocoon. The energy cocoons mentioned above surround the bodies of all incarnate living beings. They are also called etheric bodies, but one should take into account that the meaning of the latter term is unclear. Some authors may denote with it other structures and states, when they simply do not know what to call them. The cocoons form of the aggregate biofields of all cells of the body. There can be multi-layer cocoons, i.e., they can consist of several layers of energies of different densities located at different distances from the body. The cocoons of healthy people are more or less egg-shaped, but their borders can have either protuberances or dents against the diseased regions, which corresponds to either increased or decreased activity of the cells in the affected parts of the body. This is significant for performing extrasensory diagnostics and can be determined by palpating the boundaries of the cocoons with the palm of one's hand. But it is preferable to learn to see the cocoons as well. It is easier to learn to see one's own cocoon first, and then cocoons of other people with the help of the following method. One has to place the concentration of the consciousness, the assemblage point, in Juan Matus's terms, in the area about 50 centimeters behind one's own heels. From there, one may watch the volume inside the cocoon and begin cleansing it. Cleansing of the cocoon is an important healing method because pathogenic energies may reside not in the body but in the cocoon as well. Bubbles of perception. The concluding knowledge of this chapter would be that the cocoons consist of two unequal parts, which Juan Matus called bubbles of perception. The division of the cocoon into two bubbles of perception takes place at the collarbone level. The upper bubble includes the head and the neck, while the lower one encloses the rest of the body. In other words, the upper bubble includes the upper dantian, and the lower the other two and the legs. The upper bubble is very important for communicating with the material world, while we use the lower bubble for communicating with the non-material one. A practitioner can perceive from them separately either material world or other eons. The quantitative growth of the consciousness and the meditative work are performed primarily by the lower bubble of perception. The main part of it is the middle dantian, refining in and expanding from which we get closer to perfection. I emphasize this point again because this is the most fundamental postulate of the entire psychoenergetical work, and any deviation from this mainstream results in prolonged straggling and in wasting of very precious time of our short stay in bodies here. Harmonious development of the lower dantian, para, which is the second important component of the lower bubble of perception, is also absolutely essential for meditative achievements. But regarding this structure as the basis for spiritual growth, which is typical of many schools of martial arts, is a gross mistake. The overall energy structure of the body can also be considered as consisting of 4 vertical segments. But talking about it in practical terms makes sense only at significantly more advanced stages of spiritual development. Such exercises not only change us in the needed direction, but the attitude of other people towards us also changes. We become pleasant to communicate with, as well as just to be around. People start coming to us for spiritual advice too. I have witnessed a great number of such transformations. 2 interesting cases come to my mind. Once, after a class that I conducted, a woman came up to me and complained, "Well, you are saying right things about love, but what can I do with my flatmate? He is always irritated. We have not talked together or said hello to each other for years." I answered her, "Look, why don't you start pouring your love at him tonight, right through the wall, like in the exercise Cross of Buddha?" When she came to the next class, she told this: "I did as you recommended, and the next morning when I met my flatmate in the kitchen, he smiled to me and said, 'Why haven't we said hello to each other for so many years? Let's start greeting each other.'" There was another case. A young woman came to take part in a class in tears. I asked her what had happened. She said that she had been on the beach, taking sunbathes and doing the Cross of Buddha. A child had suddenly come up to her and said, "Don't go there, there is a snake." "Why are you crying then?" I asked. She said, "It was the first time in my life that a child came up to me on his own." The realization of the functions of the spiritual heart is the first serious step towards God that man can take. It may become the beginning of the straight path towards the complete spiritual self-realization, towards perfection, towards mergence with God in the aspect of the Creator. It is most convenient to perform the exercises with the chakras and the following meditative training in standing position or even when walking. Development of power in subtlety. Correct crystallization of consciousness. After completion of the courses that we have just described, only a few of the total number of students are able to move immediately to the next, the higher stage of spiritual ascent. The only ones that can go that fast are the ones who were mastering these stages in their previous incarnations and now are only reviewing what they studied before. Other people have to stop for a while in order to establish themselves in the states they have learned to attain. But this does not mean the latter have nothing to do. There must be a lot of reading, thinking, discussing, helping others, and listening to how God assesses one's actions. It is necessary to seek harmony with nature, especially in the early morning. It would also be good to learn to identify the voices of best singers among birds, to know them by names and how to attune to their subtlety. Among them are song thrushes, blackbirds, starlings, blackcaps, whitethroats, robins, skylarks, large curlews, woodcocks, black grouses, and snipes. One can use also special aesthetical classes that include analysis of works of various kinds of art and creative activity of the participants, and development of the power in subtlety or crystallization of the consciousness in G. Gurdjieff's terms, by analogy with the growth of a crystal, can be best attained at this stage through meditations at special places of power, winter swimming, and meditative running. Other methods of crystallization include special exercises of athletic gymnastics and Sufi whirling. Both should be performed while being in special meditations, but it does not make sense to write about this in this book. It is important to emphasize that crystallization can be correct only if performed by consciousness concentrated in the spiritual heart. At the same time, it can be successful only when the structures of all dantians, including the lower one, are developed and working properly. Correct crystallization is performed by a consciousness that grows in the subtlest eons. In this way, we can cultivate divinity in ourselves. But coarse crystallization, i.e., performed by people who eat bodies of killed animals, live in coarse emotions, and are devoid of correct spiritual aspiration, can form devils out of them. The same psychic techniques will produce either the former or the latter effect, depending on the inner state of the one who practices them. This is one of the reasons why it is so dangerous to reveal secret esoteric knowledge to those who are not ready to apply it correctly. Winter swimming. Winter swimming, i.e., swimming in ice-cold water, is a wonderful method not only of tempering the body, but also of increasing the energy might of the organism. Statistics holds that among those practicing winter swimming, the sickness rate decreases for cold-type diseases 60 times, and for other diseases 30 times. As a therapeutic method, winter swimming can heal many diseases, including radiculitis, both high and low blood pressure, pulmonary tuberculosis, pancreatic diabetes, chronic gastrointestinal diseases, inflammations in genitals, menstrual cycle abnormalities, dermatosis, and so on. One should not begin to swim in cold water necessarily in autumn, as some people think. One may start right during the hardest frost, if one likes, but it is recommended to master first the psychic self-regulation techniques that we have described above. In this case, winter swimming will directly contribute to strengthening the ability to preserve the subtlest psychic states. Coming out into the frost naked and submerging into ice-cold water become not only an act of volition, but also a controlled experiment on oneself in order to maintain the subtlest states of the consciousness in the conditionally adverse environment. It is beneficial to disidentify oneself from bodily sensations and to merely observe them from the depths of the subtle planes. The organism responds to the cold shock with energy stress, which may be colored with positive or negative emotions, depending on the mood, with which one set about winter swimming in the first place, and one's psychic self-regulation skills. The activity of the energy system of the organism increases and initiates an intensive heat generation process. The right mood and disidentification from bodily sensations allow one not to feel the coldness of the air and water even during a hard frost. After staying in ice-cold water, a person who does not feel cold for some time, while when the frost is not too hard, one may even start to feel hot due to the continuing process of intensive heat generation in the organism. But after 10 to 20 minutes, the resources of the organism get depleted, and one starts chilling and shivering. As one proceeds with training, the intensity of such sensations decreases. At such moments, one may warm oneself by performing active movements, indoors, or coming near a fire. These kinds of stress and depletion of the energy system of the organism train this system, increase its mobility and capacity. One has to submerge into water together with the head. Upon entering water, one should immerse oneself into it completely, then wait until the breath calms down, and then immerse oneself again together with the head. During this procedure, one may notice lumps of dark energy flowing out from the body. This has a healing effect on the body. One of the most eminent popularizers of cold tempering in Russia was Porfiry Ivanov, who with his life example demonstrated the possibility of merging harmoniously with nature in all its manifestations. He walked barefooted, even during sharp frost, wearing only pants, swam in natural water reservoirs many times a day, or showered himself with water from wells during winter, as well as slept in the snow without clothes. Although swimming in ice-cold water is undoubtedly the most effective tempering procedure, do not get too upset if there is no suitable water reservoir where you live. You may, for example, run barefooted in the snow, and if there is the possibility, lay in the snow for a while without clothes. You may pour well water on your body. As a last resort, you may lay in the bathtub filled with cold water, or pour it on your body from a bucket or basin. But one should keep in mind that water with temperature over 8 degrees centigrade, about 43 degrees Fahrenheit, does not induce the launch of the described energy processes in the organism, and swimming in it is less effective, while it may even cause untrained individuals to catch cold. Cold procedures can be performed both as a part of a special training and every day in the morning or in the evening after work in order to relieve fatigue, as well as in all those cases when for various reasons we have lost inner harmony or do not see light in ourselves anymore. All cold procedures must be performed using psychic self-regulation methods, and not merely through an act of volition. Attempts to increase their effect by creating sharp temperature contrasts also do not make too much sense. For example, if you plan to pour cold water on your body, it would be appropriate to submerge the wrists into it first and imagine streams of blissful freshness and joy rising up the hands. Then you may wash your face and feel the freshness and joy entering your body through your face. Spill a few handfuls of water on your head, imagining that this is the water from melted snow in a spring puddle on a meadow, that this is spring itself. And then you may really feel the sincere desire to get united with this water with your entire body. After swimming or showering, you should observe the energy processes inside the body. You may see there the bright white light fire blazing up, which you should distribute evenly over the entire space inside the body. This fire heals the body and rids us of coarse energies. In conclusion of this chapter, I want to say the following. Even without prior studying the techniques of psychic self-regulation, winter swimming saved many people of severe diseases that were considered terminal, including cancer. There are many well-known cases of quick healing of respiratory diseases in the acute stage using this method. Enthusiasts of winter swimming accumulated certain experience of healing children, and this issue deserves a thorough in-depth study. But it is not a panacea, the cure of all diseases. For example, in case of chronic diseases, which are accompanied with slightly increased body temperature, it does not always produce the positive effect. The organism apparently does not have the resources that could be activated by submerging the body into ice-cold water. Such patients should rather get hypothermal, high-temperature, bath treatment. There may be no constraining to winter swimming, even for therapeutic purposes, since it is being mentally ready that to a large extent predetermines the effectiveness of this method.